Democracy, freedom, representation. Big words, heavy words. There is one set of professionals at the heart of these foundations of our country at the local level more than anyone else. That's our clerks.
Our third example covers clerks and civics. Last time, we talked planning. Planning is made up of rules that we've set for our jurisdictions, of what can be built where. The plan is our community. It is a blueprint for what we want to happen for our city, town, or county in the coming years. The rules are something we as local government professionals have a say in. We interpret the rules, enforce the rules, and there are processes for us to change the rules as well. The stakes are high. Where we put the new park, where we put the chemical plant, where we revitalize a shopping district, and where we don't matters. We can start by aiming to do what's right, knowing that by doing nothing, that means we're carried along for what other path others decide to take. Let's talk about the clerk's profession. In my opinion, they serve as the heart of our democratic institutions on the local level. Why do I say this? Well, they are in charge of public records, our very history, laws, the documents that say what our local governments have done and will do. They are a central part of our public meetings, taking minutes and acting as a resource for both the elected officials and the community at large when everyone comes together. They also oversee elections in an impartial and just manner. In other words, the ways we become civically engaged, at least through official channels, whether it's learning about the local government, attending a public meeting, voting, it's clerks. If you look at the organizational chart of even the smallest communities, they have a clerk. Before a town manager, before a planner, before a finance professional, before anything else, we find a clerk. When it comes to the key roles for clerks, we start with information. How are the public records stored? Paper, electronic, in a secured location, off-site? How is public information advertised and for what? Are council, board, commissioner meetings right there on the front page of the website? Are they tucked into a corner, taking half a dozen clicks or more to reach? How accessible is our information? In other words, how much knowledge of the internal workings of local government does someone need to get information, whether on a meeting, an ordinance, an open records request? How much do open records requests typically cost? One clear indication of civic engagement is if and how public information is used. Do we measure who goes to what web page? Who asks for what information? These questions and more start to give us a clear idea of our transparency. Do we go above and beyond or commit only the legal minimum of sharing information? Here's a bigger question for us to tackle. Does our local government want people to participate? The emphasis is on want. Yes, legally people are entitled to participate in their local government processes. Do we want them to? Do we really want a dozen concerned citizens at the budget workshop? Do we really want our volunteer committees and boards to be churning out proposals month after month? Why or why not? Chances are it may be a bit of both. Some things we really do want to need public input on. Other things, it does slow our processes down when we've put in the research and come up with some recommendations already. For these differences, it doesn't matter who from the public is involved. Some groups or people we're more inclined to want to participate and others less so. Are there certain topics we're hungry for public participation and other topics we hope we can just move things forward? In what ways do we welcome public participation? Through what channels? Remember, there's unofficial ways to participate as well. People can protest. People can go through the local news, social media, and so on. The point right now isn't to state what is right or wrong. It's a practice of self-awareness and hopefully some reflection afterwards to really think if our current preferences and practices are fair, if they serve everyone, or if there's a few things we can pivot on. One more aspect of our public meetings to consider is space. Are the chambers for the elected officials welcoming? What message does it send to someone in the public? Who do we think will look into our public spaces and say, this is my kind of place? Who might walk in and say, what have I just walked into? This looks intimidating or different or something else less favorable. How are the rooms set up? Is the way the chairs are arranged match the message we want to send? Does our space say community, or does it say stuffy bureaucratic red tape with the visuals? And of course, voting. Getting into our elections goes a bit beyond the scope of the series. It is worth mentioning that as of this recording, there have been elections with widespread doubts and accusations towards the fairness and impartiality of them. That's a real problem. It is on the shoulders of not just the clerks, but all of us to do our part in each of our jurisdictions to maintain public confidence. It is to each of us in our own way stand up for our democracy and people's rights to disagree with us. Of all the many different, important professions within local government, it is perhaps the clerks where neutrality is most expected, and for good reason. What is our solution? How can clerks retain their professional ethics all while trying to improve our systems, our processes, even the way we think of our service to our most disadvantaged residents? The answer is to be proactive. It is pushing for greater accessibility and transparency before the controversial land use case comes up. It is getting our ducks in a row for the election before the mean ads come out and tensions raise. It is making for a more welcome space before we have an incident of a resident or employee being treated unfairly. We work hard now, and it'll pay off when it counts later, and we'll retain neutrality. For an example of civics and equity, we look at the city of Northglenn. They adopted 2 community boards between 2020 and 2021. First, they created their Diversity, Inclusivity, and Social Equity Board. They also developed a separate Community Co-Production Policing Advisory Board. In their case, they saw the value of having 2 groups with distinct roles, not some generic, sounds good but doesn't have a clear direction group. From Northglenn, we can all consider what community boards and committees, especially on equity, can help us out. We can also consider how best to set them up for success. For our optional exercise, we go back to the question of who attends public meetings. Choose a type of meeting and we can attend ourselves. Do a lot of people show up? Not very many? Who's most likely to be impacted by the decisions made during the meeting? Are they the ones who are present? Up next, our 4th example in equity in local government, recreation.